Guys, and welcome back to my channel for yet another live stream, for yet another Chelsea preview, this time ahead of Chelsea against Manchester United tomorrow on Sunday afternoon. And I'm not by myself. First of all, I did a little bit of a silly right now, I won't lie. You know, how I press the timer all the time, but I forgot to press live in the top corner, hence why the timer for you guys watching was about 5 seconds now. We were sat here for 2 minutes letting it run down. And I was like, why is the stream not coming on? Until I clocked that, which is not live. But as you can see, I'm not here by myself. I'm joined by Zach, and correct me if I'm wrong if I pronounce your surname wrong. I'm going to go with Jalab. You know,
perfect. Yeah, perfect. It's like a silent D. I've had it said many a way throughout my lifetime, so that was perfect, mate. I appreciate that.
We're Chelsea fans, you know. We've had Papi Gilabogi. We should know how to pronounce the DJ.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. You guys might know him off, of course, Chelsea Unscripted, or I'm sure other places like the Football Daily as well, of course. But yeah, you know, first of all, thank you for joining me. How are you? And I'm excited for the game.
Indeed, I'm good, thank you, mate. I hope you're doing well. I'm super excited for this game. This could be the thing that really kicks on. We're going through a tough run right now in terms of fixtures. Just played at Leicester, beat them. After this, we've got Liverpool, Everton, and Leeds. So there's some difficult games ahead. And this, if we get another win today, this could be fantastic for our run to try and get top four football and really knock United off their perch. Because if I'm being honest, I don't think United have been that great this season, but they're second place in the league, which is an impressive feat for them. So yeah, no, I'm very excited. Slightly nervous, but excited nonetheless.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like that's the thing with these big games. Like we're excited, we're confident because, you know, ever since Tuchel has obviously taken over, and we'll touch on that in a minute. You know, things have gone well. We've played 8 games, won 6 of them, conceded 2 goals. One of them, you know, we scored ourselves. So like everything's kind of coming up Millhouse really. And Manchester United, even though of course they got through to the next round of the Europa League and beat Newcastle, their performance still hasn't been that great realistically, and we should be confident. But then you also hear the things that Solskjaer has won the last, 3 or 4 games at the Bridge. And also they haven't lost a single away game this season. I'm like, oh, well, you know. But hey,
it's got to end eventually, mate. It's got to end eventually. Like I remember last season. Like the thing is, we've played them every time we've played them recently. We've been the better side. Like I think back to the time in the FA Cup when we played them. It's like apart from a Rashford worldie, it's like we should have beat them. The time when Maguire should have been sent off for kicking what's his face in the balls for kicking Batshuayi, was it in the balls?
Batshuayi,
yeah, like so many things have gone against us. It's so annoying. We can only hope. Touch wood, man. Touch wood.
Yeah, honestly, and that's what I'm expecting. Obviously, we'll get into what we expect from the game a little in more detail in a minute, but that's what we have to expect again, really, that we will be the team, you know, on the front foot, not just because we're at home, but because of the way we play and the way Manchester United tend to play against, shall we say, the top teams. Obviously, when they play against Newcastle, it's not like that. But when they play a Man City, a Chelsea, or whoever, that's just what they end up doing every single time. Yeah. And we just need to make sure they don't defend well enough to keep us out and don't hit us on the break to, make us look like mugs, because that's happened too many times. Obviously, you made a good point. Obviously, in the FA Cup semi-final last year, we properly battered them. You know, it should have been more than the 3-1 it was in the end. So that was great. But then also there was obviously the game at Old Trafford earlier this season, which was just an absolute ball fest, other than Harry Maguire wrestling tackling Azpilicueta, which was obviously I still don't understand to this day what VAR was doing, honestly.
It's that was one. I think that's the one that's frustrated me the most this season, just because he then has the cheek later on to be like, oh, how did he not get a foul when someone touched him in the box, whatever, when he was offside? And it's like you literally did a wrestling move on Azpilicueta in the box and nothing happened. And that's the thing that's so frustrating about VAR. Like the one thing I get annoyed about with VAR, if people talk about it as if it's like a robot, as if like every decision should be correct. It's still a human, like someone, it's still another referee watching it. That's where it frustrates me. Stop talking about it as if it's like this thing above us that kind of sees all and all that. It's not. It's someone sitting there and they're making the wrong decision. Instead of calling it's VAR's fault, it should be the referee's fault who's watching it rather than that. But yeah, that's just another gripe that I've got.
Yeah, no, definitely. And my biggest issue with it is sometimes, maybe not for the offside ones, because that probably takes a while to get the lines perfect and whatever. But decisions like that, just tell them or just tell him something happened. Go to the screen, look at it yourself, and it's calm. Because, I mean, obviously we saw it on Tuesday in the Champions League. the fact that Giroud situation took 2 minutes and 50 seconds to decide, when it was so obvious that the ball clearly came off Hermoso. I'm like, how has this taken so long? So it's clearly not just a Premier League issue as well, because it, like I said, obviously happened in the Champions League. It's mind-boggling sometimes. I'm not sure if you saw it, Man United against Newcastle. You see like the elbow that Maguire, dealt out against, who was it?
Mate,
I can't remember who it was.
Mental. Like, I don't understand how that's not been picked up. Like, to be honest, actually in the game I didn't see it. They didn't pick it up in the game. It's when you go on Twitter and you saw afterwards, and it's like, how's that been allowed? Like, I actually don't mind how long it takes, as long as the right decision comes out of it. So like the Giroud one, as you said, took 2 minutes or something, but they gave the goal. So like at the end of the day, I'm not too bothered on that bit. But the fact that they didn't even look at the Maguire incident, like, it is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, true. You make a fair point. As long as they make the right decision, and in hindsight, especially this away game, that VAR just gave us a little bit more time.
Precisely.
So, but still, like, especially when they don't look at things, and I always feel like, obviously, when VAR came in, fans were still allowed at grounds, so it was always like, the people, right there, they don't know what's going on. But even on TV, half the time they don't actually tell you, are you looking at this right now? And just decided it's not worth doing anything more with, or did you not even pay any attention to it? That's just what we never know.
Yeah. Well, I think there's like I think they should adopt the American football system of like where they talk out loud, they put the microphone on. I guess that might become more in conversation once fans are allowed back in the stadium, so then they can try and do that. But yeah, at the end of the day, English referees don't have the best rep around Europe anyway. Like, I'm pretty sure the last World Cup, I don't think there even was any Premier League referees that went. So when you've got these guys that are also then controlling VAR, who are already on the pitch making crazy decisions, you're going to get crazy decisions in general. And let's just hope that if any crazy decisions do happen on Sunday, that they're for us rather than against us.
Exactly, and like our team just said, he thinks referees should be interviewed after games, and I think that's fair enough. Like, you don't have to scrutinize them. Just if you explain your opinion on a situation, at the end of the day, it's still somewhat subjective. And if they share their opinion, you can accept it a little bit more, I think, and people will. Obviously there was this story with Mike Dean recently that he had the death threats and whatever else going to his family and whatever. And I think that's partly to do with the fact that they're not seen as humans by people. Obviously, maybe not, because obviously the players are seen more as humans, and we know what kind of ridiculous abuse, whether racially or, in terms of death threats kind of thing, they receive. But still, I think a part of the referee problem is that they're just seen as these robots, like you touched on for VAR earlier, and not like as humans. And that's comparing the US and obviously England. I think if the referees were to speak on microphones, I don't even want to know the kind of insults they'd be thrown out by the entire stadium if they said something against the home team. So I think maybe that's why they haven't done that yet.
No, for sure. It's not an easy job. Like, it's really not an easy job. You're never going to please everyone. One set of fans are going to be annoyed no matter what happens. And in such a high intensity game like we're playing in the Premier League nowadays, you've got to keep up with everything. You've got to make sure you're making the right decisions, and that was supposed to be the whole point in VAR, to help you. So when the people behind the scenes of VAR aren't doing that job, yes, it gets frustrating. But I believe in VAR. Like, I think it's something that we should keep in football, and that it shouldn't go away. And it just takes time. It'll just take time to be implemented. The difference, right, is with goal line technology, it's either a goal or not. With decisions in football, it's, so as you said, subjective. So like, still people aren't going to be happy 100% of the time. No matter what happens, VAR's never going to be 100% right. Right? People are still going to be annoyed no matter what happens. So it's just about being, rather than that happening every single game, a lot less, maybe like once a weekend, or even less than that.
For sure. And I think part of the issue is also that they haven't really adapted the rules enough to having VAR now. The whole issue with the offside thing, because offside probably should be like goal line technology. It's either factually offside or you're factually not. But the whole debate of that, now the edge of your shirt counts, but you're not actually allowed to score with that part of your arm, because that's arm, that's shoulder. Yeah. So why does that count not as offside, which makes no sense? Like,
it's difficult as well with offsides, because the other thing is cameras like aren't like the frames, like the frame rate of cameras, stuff like that. Like when that ball actually leaves his foot, legitimately he might have been onside, but actually the frame rate, because it's only going by one frame. I don't know. They don't have super slow-mo cameras. They're using normal cameras, so that he might have moved a bit extra in that one frame, but actually when it came off his foot, he was onside. So it's hard to tell. And as I said, like, I don't envy them. It's definitely probably the hardest job in football, especially in games that mean so much sometimes.
Exactly. I don't really know how we got into a whole discussion about VAR, but hey, let's talk about Manchester United and Chelsea against Manchester United a little bit. Of course, guys, if you're watching this right now, big up yourself, subscribe if you haven't already, smash the like button, and of course, check out Zach's channel. I looked at it, not the most consistent yet. I don't know whether you're planning to change that, but it's like kind of a video a month. But hey, I guess it's something.
Yeah, it's. I should hopefully have a video out on Thursday. Hopefully, we'll see. It's just I get super busy with things, and then like I'll think of an idea, and I don't like that idea in a week's time, and I don't know. Down the line, I hope to eventually try and be at least fortnightly. I've got a couple of things lined up for once we get out of lockdown. That should be a bit easier. But yeah, whenever someone tells me, like, "Oh, if you're going to start a YouTube channel, what should you do?" Like one of the things I always say is, like, "I'll be consistent," but I can't even do that myself. Like, so don't listen to me is what I'm saying mainly. But yeah, I'm trying.
Exactly. So check it out anyway. Subscribe to him, and he will put out videos, and then you can just see them and don't miss them. So that's the best idea. But let's talk about Chelsea against Manchester United. And we touched on a few things already. Obviously, Ole's record at the Bridge and them not having lost any away games. But how do you feel ahead of the game? Obviously, you said excited but nervous, but more in depth in terms of how do you think the game will go? Will it be just what we do under Tuchel? We get the ball, try to press. What happens from there?
United are missing a few figures. I think they were saying that Cavani could be out. Was it Fred is out? I think I can't remember. There was a few players that they're missing. Pogba, yes, Pogba's out, and I think it's one more that I can't quite remember. Which is
Mata is also definitely out. And I think
well, he wasn't good. He wasn't going to start anyway. No, so it's really Cavani and Pogba.
Cavani's out, maybe Van der Beek, but not sure.
Yeah, so your midfield you're expecting is a Fred, McTominay, Bruno midfield, which overall actually means defensively they sound like they're going to be quite resolute. Maguire,
McTominay might be another one that's apparently out, so maybe Matic.
Okay, well if they're missing McTominay, then that might be quite interesting. Though I heard actually Matic had a very good game for them recently. But anyway, yeah. So I think it's going to be like of recent games where United will kind of sit back, absorb the pressure, especially in these big kind of games. They'll absorb this pressure and then kind of get us on the counter attack. The other thing, right, is Tuchel's played them twice already. United side with Ole in charge this season, 1-1. Lost one, and he would have definitely learned a lot from it. I mean, he lost the first one, then won the second one. So he'd definitely kind of be understanding. I wouldn't be too shocked tomorrow if like he did something crazy and actually we weren't playing three at the back. I expect him to do three at the back, but the way he manages this team is, and it's good. It's interesting. It's really interesting. It's so versatile and so flexible with all the formations. So yeah, I expect us to be kind of three at the back. No Thiago Silva, which is a shame, but actually Christensen's been fantastic in that back three. Aspie, really. I think it's going to be the team we kind of all expect. Cho on the wing. This might be the first time Cho kind of has a real game of having a bit more defensive work. Recently he's kind of been more attacking, and he actually did a very good job against Lamar on Tuesday night. However, Rashford is a very different player to Lamar. In an attacking sense, that's the thing we've got to be aware of. Like I've said it before, Bruno in big games, traditional top six games anyway, hasn't necessarily turned up. But this season anyway, he's not been at his best in those kind of games. So that's the main point I think we need to focus on. I would be very surprised if Kante didn't start, to kind of put him on, make sure he is on Bruno all the time, give him no time on that ball, let him have no creative decisions, let him just make it a really hard game for him if he wants to do anything, because that's where everything comes from United. You assume with no Cavani, it'll be a Martial up front, and then Greenwood maybe on the right, Dan James, you're not too sure on that one at the moment. So they're going to play for counter-attacks, but then we did such a good performance against Atletico for counter-pressing and basically stopping any counter-attacks happening for them. The one thing I would say is, in an attacking sense, United are much better than Atletico. Defensively, Atletico miles above them, but attacking-wise, they are much better. What I don't want is what happened at Old Trafford, where both teams are too afraid to push it. No one wants to be the first one to give too much space and let someone have a chance, where it kind of felt like both teams are willing to sit back, let each other have the ball and see what happens from there. And, United probably had the best chance in the game with Rashford having 2 chances, Mendy coming out big for both of them, sorry. So I think it's going to be cagey. I just think the longer it's 0-0, for us, the worse it is for us personally, because that'll play into United's hands amazingly. They'll want it to be 0-0 for as long as possible, and then when we're getting frustrated with it, because obviously they're above us, they don't mind getting a draw from this game away from home. As you said, they're unbeaten. We want to take all 3 points. We'll get frustrated, try and maybe push a few more men forward, try and commit a bit more forward, and then they've got us on the break if they want. However, I very much trust the way Tuchel's been this season. He will have analysed them ridiculous amounts, told the players everything that they need to know. And so, I think if you take Bruno out of that game, they're really not anything that special. Rashford's maybe their only other kind of outlet. Martial's not been that good this season. So I am confident, but also we need to be cautious, because if we do sleep, if we do maybe make one mistake, they will, and it goes to Bruno or something, they will punish us. So it's just about, making sure we're cautious and kind of, but also, not willing to let it go for a 0-0 draw.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's the issue. And I fully agree. Like, the longer it's 0-0, that's for the exact same reasons you said, that's when it might become a bit of an issue. The back 3 is an interesting one, because I'm personally of the opinion I would long-term like to see us go for a back 4. I think it lets us put more of the players that are our best players, plus that I like to see on a regular basis in the team, including having Reece James and Callum Hudson-Odoi both on the pitch, as just one example. I think that suits us slightly better in that sense. But I think Manchester United is probably the one game where I'm like, back 3 makes sense here. Just to deal with their counter-attacking threat a little bit better, because we can push high up the pitch. If we have a solid back line of the 3, if they play the balls over the top to a Rashford, to a Martial, to Dan James if he plays, although they've said in the comment here that he's injured, which I hadn't heard about.
Lord.
Exactly. That's when that might be an issue, and that's why I think that the back 3 could be handy. So I do, like you said though, Tuchel is very unpredictable, and him having gone for almost the same thing every time was almost his way of being unpredictable in a way.
Yes. Yeah, no, 100%. I actually really agree with that. I think the other thing for him as well is, I think for the rest of the season, it will mainly be back 3. Because to implement something, you obviously know he likes to play a certain kind of football, right? He wants to dominate games, and he wants the players to know exactly what they have to do in certain situations in terms of... well, not even in that. He wants the players to be creatively free and kind of maybe come up with their own solutions at times. The difference is you can't, with the way the schedule is at the moment, you can't develop that in 2 days before you play another game, right? That's more of something that's going to probably happen in pre-season. So I think for the rest of the season, it's going to be mainly a back 3, just because it gives you that comfortability. He said how much he wants Aspie on the pitch all the time, who's such a leader on and off it. And once Thiago Silva's back, that would make such a big difference too. But I think, I honestly think Christensen's been fantastic in the centre of them as well at the moment. He's such a calm presence on the ball recently. So maybe next season I think we'll see a lot more of maybe 4 at the back and that kind of stuff. Who knows who we bring in the summer as well. That might play an effect of it too. And as you said, it gets you a couple more, maybe an extra attacking player on rather than an extra centre back. But just for the rest of the season, try and get Champions League football, I think it'll probably be 3 at the back.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting one for sure throughout this tough run. Maybe once the games ease up a little bit, and obviously who knows how much longer we'll be in Europe for, and maybe every now and again we'll have midweeks off. And then I think from that point on, maybe we will start it even this season. Depends on obviously how our form continues, right? If we keep winning, keep playing well, then there's less need to change it, obviously. But, I spoke to Saeed, just a minute ago, and we spoke to Flex yesterday. And what Manchester United fans said is the fact that they struggle most probably with breaking teams down. And that they actually said for us, probably the best way to beat them is just to sit back ourselves, but we're definitely not going to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd probably agree. They get inside there, especially when teams are defensively resolute, like your lesser teams, right? Your Sheffield United, your teams that are kind of down the bottom, not necessarily expected to go out there and give a good game and give a good result. It's easier for them to kind of just get them on the counter. I completely agree. Because Maguire Maguire, I think, is a good centre-back. I don't think he's an £80 million centre-back.
No.
I think Lindelof is okay. I think he's still got potential. I think he's 27, I think, roughly. Like, there's still time
Something
there.
like that, yeah.
But those two, if they start tomorrow, we need to target them. Like, confidence right now for them is on the floor. They're not performing well, especially as a duo. And like, a couple of people asked me, like, who do I think will play up front? I'm really not too sure whether it will be Tammy or Giroud. Like, it could be a flip of a coin, if I'm being quite honest. Werner, I think he'll probably have a lot more to say in this game than he did maybe at Old Trafford. But we should be targeting Maguire. Like, Maguire is a centre-back, which is so weird, where there's this thing in football at the moment that I get really annoyed with, where I think it happened in Southampton, where the Southampton player was shielding out the ball, and I think Mount touched him, and he's fallen over and got a free kick. Yeah. That in no way is a free kick. It's no, like, if you stand your ground and then he shoves you, it's a free kick. Absolutely fine. Maguire keeps doing this as well, but Maguire's been found out a couple of times when the referee hasn't given it as a free kick. I think it was Sheffield United, and they should have scored, or was it West Brom? Either or. They had
one of them.
Yeah, they had this chance where Maguire was shielding the ball. I think he was going to play it to De Gea in the end. The striker just kind of gave him a little bit of strength to show that I'm trying to battle for it too. He flops on the ground. The referees play on, and they have a chance. Like, we should 100% be targeting them like that. The only issue is, you're right, is when if they're going to be sitting back, you're not going to have that same space, because this is happening on the halfway line. Whereas in reality, I think Maguire and Lindelof will be sitting more between just in front of their box rather than anything else. But it's going to be a very interesting game. It's going to be a huge game for the season. Game for the season. I mean, we win this and then play a Liverpool side who aren't looking so good. I mean, it's also a Liverpool side that need a win. So what better team to play than us? But yeah, if we beat them, and then I think they've got City next. I think next weekend. Then huge get outs that we could be possibly taking over them. Touch wood.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the issue is, in my opinion, if we try to sit back and kind of cause those situations, I think they will just sit back more than we will. Like, it's a bit like if we tried to sit back against Atletico. No matter what we did, they were going to sit back. We could stay in our own half, and they could stay in their own half. We would just, neither of us would touch the ball. I think it would almost Like, and I think the way our team manager players are structured and are wired, if the opponent just sits back more than us, we're going to just take the ball and push. And that's what Tuchel has kind of implemented as well, in terms of the counter press, how high we push up the pitch. Yeah. And I think that's what he's going to try and do. And before we get into some sort of like predicted lineup and whatever we wish in more detail on each position, I guess I want to touch on what Tuchel said in the press conference yesterday, because actually in the embargoed bit that only came out, I don't know when it came out, but anyway, I read it this morning, when he spoke about Kai Havertz as well, saying because he was asked hundreds of times about what do you see as Timo Werner's best position, but finally he was asked about that for Kai Havertz. Obviously, you spoke to Kai, not about positions, but regardless, still something. I'll drop the name in there. But the fact that Tuchel sees him as both as a number 9 and as a number 10, rather than as a wide player or as an 8, which I think is very interesting. Hence why I put it in like the title and the thumbnail, that Kai Havertz as a false 9 could be Tuchel's kind of like secret weapon, almost like he used Mason Mount against Tottenham, with Werner to his left and then whoever to his right. Obviously, in that game, it was Callum Hudson-Odoi. I'm not necessarily saying this is what's going to be tomorrow, but I think long term, because Giroud scores these crazy goals like he did against Atletico, or has these off games against, like in Sevilla when he scores 4. Realistically, long term, neither Giroud or Tammy are probably going to get us quite enough goals to get us to the very top. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Erling Haaland and whatever, right? But I think to get the most out of Werner and to get the most out of the front line, especially while we play a back 3, I think a Kai false 9 would be unbelievable. I want to know what you think about that, and the fact that Tuchel even hinted at him seeing it like that, because he's obviously tall. He's known from at least the Bundesliga to get heading goals. He even got one.
He's very good. He's actually very good in the air. Yeah, he is very good in the air, for sure.
I don't know how tall he is, like 6'2", 6'3", so he is tall as well. He might not be the most muscular guy, but he's still tall enough. And he's good in the air. His touch is unbelievable. We know that his movement is great, and that's probably why he's most effective. And I just think with how Werner has to play like somewhat a little bit off the left, if that makes sense, that allows Werner to play that probably to his best, rather than with Giroud, who will always stay in that middle and kind of occupy the space and not allow Werner to move into there. I don't know what you think about that.
It's interesting because if you look at the way he played at Leverkusen, it was kind of like second striker, played on the right a bit. He also played in kind of right centre midfield, but it wasn't right centre midfield. It would be a lot further up the pitch, essentially kind of playing behind the striker again. False nine, I'm not so sure could be what happens. Possibly. I think he could work into whatever you need him to do. Personally, he's still so young. He's still so versatile, and he's getting better. Like every game at the moment, he's getting better. I don't know if you saw. I can't remember what game it was, but there was a game where him and Timo played for Germany, and they linked up really, really well. So there's definitely a partnership there. And I actually spoke to Timo Werner on Thursday. And like when speaking to him, like his best mate, he's like they seem like best mates at the moment or at the club, and they get on really, really well. Apparently, play Fortnite together, all that kind of stuff. And so stuff like that will definitely help on the pitch. And there's been moments as well with this, but also like Kai was really good with Tammy. Like I don't remember. I know it was only Barnsley, but it was a team. It was a game where those two linked up really, really well. I still think there's a very good place for Tammy in this squad. Personally, think he should at times maybe be the starting striker. But yeah, I definitely think there's something there. I don't quite know, because I think if you're playing three at the back, then I don't know if necessarily a false nine works quite as well. You're right, it did work against Spurs, but we also didn't take our chances. So it's like, who does he come in for as well? Like, so are we saying that, okay, if Kai's starting a false nine, there's no Tammy or Giroud, do we still have Mason Mount in the squad? Like this kind of thing, like Mason Mount's so important to this squad at the moment with everything he does, the defensive work, the attacking work, the pressing. Like you saw, Tuchel brought him on for 10 minutes against Wolves, and ever since then he's been in the side. He was the ever present. He knew he has to start every week. So yeah, I'm very interested. I think pre-season will tell us a lot again with whoever we sign, whoever we let go of, it's hard. It's definitely hard. I think next season he'll be miles better than what's been this year. Look at Cancelo, right? Cancelo last year, people were talking about him leaving Manchester City, all this, and now he's had a year in the Premier League and he's absolutely killing it. It takes different players different amount of times to bed in. Doesn't like, I mean, if you go back into the history of the club, if we'd looked at maybe Frank Lampard's first season at Chelsea as a player, if you look at Didier Drogba when he first joined, like they would have been getting absolutely ridiculed by if we're going by the same kind of way that we're looking at the moment. So yeah, I'm not too sure, just because I haven't seen him in that position yet for us. Maybe if we tried it, and because I'm trying to think against Liverpool, was it Liverpool? Did he play striker?
I think in one of the games, not for a full game and from the get-go, but I think there was one of the games where he played that for a part of the game for sure.
Yeah.
Because obviously you touched on the Leverkusen part. I think after obviously the Bundesliga restart, I think there was a fair few games when he almost played as almost a striker, obviously with people around him, obviously to make the whole thing work in the first place, don't get me wrong. But still, and that's why I think it's a little bit different him as a false nine compared to like a Mason Mount, because, or even back when we did it with Hazard every now and again, because he's actually capable of doing the false nine role, because he is more of that goal scorer guy, plus has the height. So it's not like, when you put Mason up top, you just don't have height, right? Which Tammy and Giroud give you. Obviously, to different, strengths with using the height, but still. And the same was when we did it with Hazard every now and again with Sarri, but more so with Conte, right? So I think there is still something in there, but you're definitely right. Does Mount work as that right inside forward?
Yeah.
Havertz as that I agree with. That I'm not 100% sure. But I still think it is, I mean, Farkhan said it here. I'm not sure. Obviously, I haven't fact-checked it, but he said he scored 12 goals as a false nine, so fair play. But I do still think, as much as we've been good and defensively a lot better, our final third output still hasn't been quite there.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And I still feel like we need to try a few different things to see if that makes it work. And I just feel that maybe that Kai Havertz trying him in there, if it don't work, it don't work, right? but trying him in there could be something that especially a lot of teams might not see coming.
I would say maybe not just yet. Like, he's just come back from injury. Putting him as a starting, false nine is a lot of pressure to put. He's already dealing with so much pressure. Like, I think you want to kind of get him back into. I know he's on for like 3 or 4 minutes against Atletico, but when he was on, he seemed a lot more confident. He seemed a lot more comfortable on the ball. I remember him doing a flick pass over one of the Atleti defenders, and I was like,
didn't he?
Yeah, he wasn't trying that beforehand. And I remember before he got injured, he also seemed a little bit more comfortable on the ball. Because before it was like there were like simple passes that he just wasn't making to Reece James. It just didn't look right. Whereas now, or in those 5 minutes anyway, he looked a lot more comfortable, a lot more settled in. And I think people forget that, right? Like, imagine being 20, 21 years old, moving to a new country during a global pandemic. You can't bring your family over. You can't see your family for Christmas. Like, stuff like this it must be hard. Like, of course, they're on these mad wages. It helps, but they're only human, right? Like this kind of stuff, and it's bound to affect them on the pitch. So yeah, I'm confident. I'm also very, very confident that he'll be a Chelsea star. It just takes a bit of time, and he'll be banging them in for sure.
100%. And people also can't forget how young he is. Like, obviously you might not know this, I've been very critical of Timo Werner at times this season, but much less so of Kai Havertz. And people think, they're the young Germans, but you shouldn't forget that Kai is 3 years younger, and 3 years, especially in that age, is a big difference. Also, Kai came from his boyhood club, so that was actually his first move, and straight out the country as well. Obviously, Timo had that move from Stuttgart to Leipzig. Yes, he was younger, and yes, it was within the same country, but it's still, how moving clubs is. And Kai had none of that experience. And like you said, family can't come over. Yes, he lives with his girlfriend and whatever, but still, it definitely makes a difference. Obviously, he was hit with the illness, and
I completely forgot about that.
Exactly. So, and then we obviously heard in hindsight that it affected him quite badly physically, although I still very baffled that I think the 5 games after he was back negative, Lampard started him just 5 games in a row. And I'm like, if it affected him so much physically, why did he start 5 games in a row? Don't get that. But regardless, that's a long time ago now. No need to dwell on that, I guess. But in terms of talking about the team, obviously, I think we're pretty sure that Mendy will be in goal, right? We'll be very surprised if Kepa comes in out of nowhere. And I think there is a chance Tuchel goes for a back 4, but I think if we're going to go for a predicted 11, I think we'll have to expect the back 3, right? And even there, probably not many surprises. Rudiger on the left, Christensen in the middle with Thiago being out, and Aspi on the right. Or do you have any?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with them.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And then you get to the wing backs. It's where it becomes a bit more interesting.
Sure.
Obviously, there is a case to be made. Alonso has played well. Alonso played, an arguably surprisingly good game against Atletico Madrid. But there is also the attacking pace threats that you get from Manchester United. And that, of course, is a little bit of an issue. And there's with the pace, whether Dan James is fit or not, the pace on the right could be an issue. So does that
even if it's Mason Greenwood? Mason Greenwood isn't slow himself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
By the way, Lewis, big up yourself. How are you?
I'm good. How's everyone been?
I'm
Very
good, thank you, mate. I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm happy. Looking forward to tomorrow. It's a chance to potentially beat Atletico, Liverpool, and Man United in the space of a week. Gone from beating no top 6 sides to beating 2 top 6 sides and one of the best teams in the world. I can't wait.
Exactly. That's the vibe. I mean, Zach and I, in the end, ended up talking about VAR for about 10 minutes. And ever since then, we've spoken about Manchester United. So, that's good. We're just kind of going through our predicted 11 almost. Obviously, the back 3 and the goalkeeper are very set on. And now we're literally joined at the perfect time. We're talking about the wing backs right now. So, Zach, let me go with you first. How do you see it? Would you like to see Chilwell come back into the side? Or do you think it should, Alonso's in decent form, just stick with it?
I think a decent amount of it depends on training, whether Chilwell's at his full level. But I would probably start Chilwell and Cho. As you said, defensively, I think Chilwell's a much better defender than Alonso. Attacking wise, I'd probably say Alonso is better, especially for scoring the goals. But I think you've got to be wary of that the pace of United, and that's where Chilwell can really shows worth. And I think that's kind of what he'll be doing for the rest of this season is when you need a bit more of a defensive game, then you start Chilwell. If you're looking for a much more attacking game, then you're going for Alonso. Now you could argue that actually we'll be doing most of the attacking in this game, so it should be Alonso, but I think you've just got to be super wary about the pace and their attack, because love them a bit. There's one thing that Alonso isn't, it's not quick. As for the right wing back, I think that'll be Cho. I think that'll be Hudson-Odoi. Just to get at Luke Shaw. I mean, I also wouldn't be too surprised if it was Reece James either, but I think it'll be Cho, and that'll be a big game for him to kind of step up his defense against, helping Aspie with dealing with Rashford, dealing with Martial, who likes to come out into that left wing, that left flank as well. But in the attacking sense, Cho all day of the week. I'd like to see him go up against Luke Shaw as well, he's also having a very good season as well at the moment. So I just think in an attacking sense, Cho would probably do more against Luke Shaw than Reece James might, and that's where we'll hope to get a lot of our attacking output from. So yeah, it'll be Cho and Chilwell for me. However, as I said, I wouldn't be too surprised if it was the other two as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really tricky one, because the way Man United play, obviously they end up with the ball on the right side in the end of their attack quite a lot. But in terms of building the attack down the right, they don't really do that much. Obviously, I'm not saying I did crazy amounts of research on Manchester United, but from what I see when I just happen to watch them, that's what I see. And I feel like if we put Chilwell there, they just end up trying to exploit our right and their left more anyway. And that's why I worry a little bit about Hudson-Odoi, because I fully agree with you. I would like to see him start, because I just think it gives us more of an attacking output. Go at their fullbacks, with a 2-on-1, and rather than them doubling up on us, we can actually try to double up on them with kind of that right inside forward, plus obviously the wing back. And not that Reece James can't do that, but obviously he's different to Callum. It's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one. Lewis, what about you? Because like I said, I don't even really know yet. I mean, maybe what you guys both say will make me make my mind up, I guess.
I think Reece James might be more necessary for this game, only because I think, if I remember correctly, Manchester United like to play a lot of their play on the left anyway. And I think if we have to deal with them on a counter-attack, I think Reece James would be a better option for us. I also think on the left-hand side, I would like to see Chilwell, but I don't think he'll be Chilwell, only because he didn't start either the Southampton game or the Atletico Madrid game. So with that in mind, I'd be really surprised to see him start the Manchester United game as well. We do have a tough run of games over the next week too, where it's a period of 3 games in 8 days. So to be honest, he should get some game time. And I mean, with that in mind, a good game for him to get him back into some sort of sharpness might be the Manchester United game in general. But I just would be really surprised if it would be this game. It's more likely to be the Manchester United game than it would be the Liverpool game. I will give him that at the very least. But I think because Liverpool will be more likely to come out a little bit more, I think it would be better that we save Chilwell for that sort of game. Manchester United will sit a bit further deep, which allows us to use Marcos Alonso a lot more freely in the final third, which is where we usually get the best out of him. So I'd just push for Marcos Alonso in this game,
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because they're not talking about Liverpool for too long, but it's like Trent Alexander-Arnold is obviously brilliant going forward, and if he has deficiencies there defensively, so you can make that case both ways. Yes, because he's good going forward, go Chilwell, but because he's bad defensively, go Alonso. It's a really tricky one to think about and debate really. And for tomorrow, I just feel that, especially when I think about the game at Old Trafford, we didn't go for it enough. And I think we just need to almost suffocate them. Let them try and sit back all they want. Atletico tried that. They're much better at it than Manchester United will be. So it's I feel confident in us right now that we can just go do that. So just suffocate them. And then we will have, with Christensen, Aspie in particular, obviously them two will be very crucial tomorrow to have a good game, with the Martial, Rashford, obviously drifting to the left side, plus whoever plays at wing back. But I just feel like, why not just go for the same again and go Alonso, Hudson-Odoi? What I think will happen is we'll go Alonso, Reece James in terms of if I go predicted 11. I think that's what Tuchel will pick. Obviously, like Zach said earlier on, they already played, or not they, but Tuchel with PSG already played against Manchester United this season, and I think like 18 months earlier, like 2 seasons before, but only like 18 months before. Obviously when they got knocked out with that kind of somewhat dodgy last minute penalty. I don't know, somewhat dodgy. When I watched it, I was like, really? He hit it that hard, the man turned away and you're giving it But anyway, so it's a whole nother debate. But it's a tricky one. But I do want to get to the midfield as well, because Zach mentioned earlier, you think and you would love to see N'Golo Kante come into this side.
Yeah.
Because that's a tough role, because Jorginho and Kovacic together have played really well. Every time they've played under Tuchel so far. They've given us a sort of control of games that we didn't have whenever Kante played, whether it was Southampton or Barnsley. So for me, it's a tricky one to decide, really, what I think is the best way. But why don't you talk me through it, why you think it would be good to go with Kante?
It's Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes, you let him have time with the ball, you let him dictate a game, he will make you regret it. He's the best signing United have done since, people said, since Cantona, which says a lot, right? And he's, I mean, you've had Cristiano Ronaldo, so I'd question that, but still. But Bruno, who is brilliant, he hasn't necessarily affected the games against the traditional top 6 like your Cities, us, etc. But don't give him the chance to do that now. Don't let him do that now, especially when I've ridiculed him to my mates who text me all about it if he did score or assist. And the one player that you want to do that job, to make sure he doesn't have any time with the ball, N'Golo Kante, the best in the world at it. Against Southampton, he was so good. He was unfortunate to not, maybe be on the winning side. I mean, we drew the game anyway. But he was fantastic, and he really kind of, I think with Kante, if you start him, he's brilliant. When he comes off the bench, he seems a little bit like it takes him a little while maybe to get into the game. But if you start him every single time, he seems fantastic. He's maybe not quite the Kante of when he was under Conte, but that's because his legs get tired. He's had a few injuries since then, and so I think you put him just to make sure that Bruno doesn't have that effect. I think you then partner him with Kovacic, who's been brilliant under Tuchel, as you said. The guy's so good at kind of progressing that ball, taking it from defence to attack. The way he dribbles is so Hazard-esque, a way he can just dribble, but it's not necessarily. Yeah, he's not necessarily doing all the fancy skills and all that, but it's the way he uses his body to get in front of the player coming towards him and taking it through to the attack. He's such a nice player to watch when he's on it. So that would be my midfield. But again, like the way we saw against Spurs, it was Jorginho and Kova, and they played really, really well. I just think Bruno Fernandes, as much as Dembele is brilliant for Spurs, Bruno Fernandes has an argument of being the best player this season in the Premier League. For sure. So we should probably try and nullify him having any effect on the game. I think the best guy to do that is Kante.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. Lewis and myself have obviously debated this many times, and it's like when you play Kante and Kovacic together, both of them like to roam in different kind of senses of the play, but both of them like to roam. Then there's a threat, you leave a gap in front of the midfield. But if you have Jorginho and Kovacic and Kante together, you don't progress the ball enough, like up the pitch. Obviously, Jorginho's passing at times, and he attempted it much more against Atletico than I'm arguably used to. Didn't quite always find them, fair enough. Forward passing wasn't great, but he attempted it more than I'm used to from him, which I actually took as a positive, a thing that I liked, because I'm like, I want to see that more from him anyway. But you're also right with the Bruno Fernandes thing. Although I do think the way we keep Bruno the quietest is the further we keep him away from our box. And the further we keep him away from our box is by being as good on the ball as possible. And that's with Jorginho and Kovacic together. That's why we're not paid millions to make these decisions, but Tuchel is. So let's hope he makes the right one, which I say, given our opinions. But Lewis, how do you feel about it? Do you think it just stick with what we had or bring Kante in there? And if so, who'd you bring him instead of? Like, I keep saying this. In a midfield 3, I would love Kante. I'm just not sure about in a 2.
Yeah, I feel like this is another game where I'd prefer to have Jorginho and Kovacic in the midfield. And I understand why Kante, and it's nothing against Kante either. I still think he's a quality player. There's still plenty that he can offer into a Chelsea team. It's just the understanding in midfield, and I just can't shake the fact that Jorginho and Kovacic just mesh better together than N'Golo Kante and either of them in the pivot. And it is annoying because it's a quality player that you leave on the bench, but we've said plenty of times, this is the depth that Chelsea have. We've got brilliant players like an N'Golo Kante who might not be able to make our best team right now. It's a real shame on his abilities, but it just shows how strong our team is. And I don't necessarily think that's a weakness for us. I would go Jorginho and Kovacic. I'd understand Kante starting this game, and I wouldn't necessarily be completely worried about it. But I would have a few question marks if Kante started the match. Ones that I do believe he can prove wrong, but I just think we'd be a lot more solid in midfield. We'd retain possession a lot better. Feel like to an extent we do more with the possession as well with Jorginho and Kovacic in the midfield. So I feel like we'd have to go for them.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So something that just randomly popped into my head. Why don't we play Kante as a central centre back? That'd be fun, wouldn't it? I don't know. Obviously, he's really short.
I swear he got a card like that on FIFA, didn't he? He got made as a centre back.
I know, like shapeshifters or whatever it was. Like, obviously, this will never happen, but it's just like, you still allow these other two, and you don't make him the number 10. You just put him in the midfield, the centre backs. But it's an interesting one. But Zach, obviously, you told us what you would like to see, but what do you think Tuchel will pick in terms of the midfield too?
Oh God. What do I think he'll pick? Like, he loves Kante. The way he spoke about Kante. Yeah, I'll go Kante cover. That's what I think he'll pick as well. I think it's hard. I actually think it could literally be a flip of a coin. That it could be either of them. It could be Kante cover or Jorginho cover. I wouldn't be too surprised with either.
So to be fair, I will say as well that maybe Kante would be better suited for this game than the Liverpool game anyway. So if we're thinking of which game to slit him into, it's either this game or the Everton match. So wouldn't necessarily be against N'Golo Kante either, just for that reason too.
Yeah, it is true. And exactly like Zach said, I think even Tuchel might be still sat in his office right now, not sure who to start in that midfield. I wouldn't be totally surprised if he's not 100% convinced either. But I think most likely, just because they've played so well in games that I see as ending up being somewhat similar to what I expect from tomorrow's game and I expect from United, and Kovacic and Jorginho together did really well in those games. Maybe I think that's why he'll pick it. Whether it will be the best thing or not, I don't know. I honestly just don't know. What I do know is that we have 250 people watching, which is sick. So I would love for all of you guys to subscribe. We're on the road to 10K. It will get never closer. So make sure you smash the subscription button. The quicker you just get me there, the less I bother you about it. So just subscribe. And, we're all just lovely, jubbly, and happy. Of course, subscribe to Zach. His link is down in the description and in the title, actually. Lewis's is down in the description as well. Subscribe to these guys. Smash the like button. And, if you want to become a member, do that. There's a join button underneath. Use the super chat function if you fancy it. But enough admin. Let's get back into predicted 11s. I think one guy we're 100% convinced about that will start is Mason Mount.
Messiah.
Exactly. He will start. Obviously, me and Zach, before you came on, Lewis, touched on Kai Havertz as a false 9 situation. Whether that works with Mason Mount and the team, I don't know. But I am still 100% convinced that Mason Mount starts and that he absolutely has to start. He's so crucial to what we do. Yes, I know his final pass, his final decision-making might not always be inch perfect. Totally get it. And I totally get that people criticize it. And hey, frankly, it should probably be criticized, not in a insulting way, but just in a normal, healthy, critical way. I'm sure he himself agrees more than anybody else that he needs to improve at certain things in that area. But how much he gives us in the press, how much he gives us in intensity, and how much he gives us in being alive on that half turn that no one else in our team is capable of doing, and how much space that creates and opens up, he's a guaranteed start, isn't he, Lewis?
Yeah. Yes, actually. I was having a bit of question marks when I was originally going through the predicted lineup on other streams, but yeah, Mason Mount can't be dropped out of the squad. The bigger question is who gets dropped out for him, because if my lineup has Reece James as right wing back, so with that in mind, Hudson-Odoi I think gets benched for this game as a result of that, because if we're playing 3 up front, I think Reece James on the wing, it'll be Mason Mount, Timo Werner, and Olivier Giroud. That's what I think the 3 up front's going to be. So, which leaves no spot for Hudson-Odoi either. But yeah, Mason Mount definitely has to make the squad. I think first half against Atletico, it wasn't really his best first half. Second half, just completely clicked. He was excellent. And he was showing João Felix levels for long periods of the second half. So yeah, Mason Mount has to start. Has to.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Lou's made an interesting point there in terms of, obviously, Zach, you said, Callum at right wing back. I'm not sure whether I forced you to tell me what you think Tuchel will actually pick, but if he doesn't start right wing back, can him and Mount start together? Do you see that as a valid option? Obviously, against when Mount was that false nine.
Yeah. I mean, if he doesn't play a striker, if he plays Timo Werner as striker, then sure. I think it's possible. I don't think he will. I think he'll play. I think it'll be a Mount. I think Cho, if he isn't playing right wing back, would then be benched, and it would be a Mount, Werner, and Tammy or Giroud. I literally got no. I could not tell you at all. But yeah, right now, Mason Mount's on the team sheet starting every single game for the rest of his career. If he keeps playing like this and keeps getting better, he's such a fantastic player to watch. Not only is he obviously Cobham and from our youth and done the loan system and been such a success story, but like every game since Tuchel's been in charge, he feels like he's our best player. The Southampton game wasn't the best game for Chelsea, but he was fantastic throughout it. And if you talk to, I think, rival fans and fans from outside Chelsea, we've been loving him since he ever started. But I think these other fans are now starting to realise just how good he is. His versatility is such an impressive feature. The fact that Frank Lampard loved him, Gareth Southgate loves him, and now Thomas Tuchel loves him, shows you that there is a reason why he's starting every week. He's not just the teacher's pet and all this kind of stuff that people are saying. He is a quality footballer that is getting better every year. Just turned 22 years old. Like, this guy is still super, super young and is getting better year after year. He's got such a good future ahead of him. The whole Chelsea squad has such a good future ahead of them. That's what's fantastic to see. And he can get better and better. He's already playing at this level now where he's the best player in our squad at times. So the idea that maybe in 4 or 5 years' time, he could be at another ridiculous level is frightening. It really is. And I'm so impressed to watch him play, and he deserves it. He's a really nice guy who is killing it at the moment.
Yeah, no, he really is. And, obviously we see a lot of people, even in the chat right now, people saying, if he wasn't English, people wouldn't praise him as highly as this. I want to say one thing to these people. That's just a different kind of racism. Just remember when you say things like that's just because he's English. Just think about what you're saying here. Think about it a little bit, because there's dodgy statements. And regardless, he is English, right? And that doesn't matter to anything. What matters is that he tries harder than anybody else on the pitch. And you don't need 11 of that, but a few of that in your team is what makes the team click. And every successful team has a few of these players that just work their socks off every day. Yes, he is technically probably not as gifted as Kai Havertz. Sure, he isn't. But there are other things that he has that Kai Havertz doesn't. Does that mean they will never be able to play together? I'm sure Tuchel will find a way. But for the time being, the way Mount has been performing and the way other people are out of form, he just has to start. There's no two ways about it. There is absolutely no two ways about it. And then I guess the question is for the remaining of the front too, because Tammy has kind of struggled a little bit under Tuchel, really. I agree with what Zach said earlier. Maybe Tammy should sometimes be given a little bit more time and trust to almost like make it work. His goal conversion rate is the best of any of our forwards. Not by a lot better than Giroud, mind you, but still a little bit better. But also whenever he's kind of started, I think, he came off at half-time other than against Barnsley. So that doesn't make me think there's much point starting him, because it just come off at half-time again almost, which obviously I wouldn't like to see. And Giroud is just a tough one. People tell me I have almost like an agenda against him. I don't. I'm not the biggest fan of slow strikers, and that's what he is. But I will say, against Manchester United, if we don't go for a false nine, and in particular, if we don't go for a false nine of Kai Havertz, I think Giroud is probably best suited to it. Because Maguire is a strong dude and whatever else. And so, Lindelof and Bailly as well. I don't even know if Bailly's 100% fit. Obviously, Said earlier said he is. But I think he can deal with that better than arguably he could deal with the Atletico defensive, unit, right? So I think Giroud is probably well suited to this. But then that almost puts me in the same situation where I'm like, okay, that means Giroud, Mason Mount, and then who? Because for me, I don't like Werner and Giroud playing together. I don't like it. I think it limits us creatively, because that puts two players in the box. All they do is wait for the ball. Obviously, Giroud will play a 1-2, but he needs to be the ball fed to him for that to happen. And if we don't have a central player behind him, whether it's Mount, Kai, Ziyech, whoever else, that doesn't quite happen enough for him to lay it around everywhere. So if I start Mason and Giroud, I personally, I'm not saying Tuchel won't, but I personally don't start Werner. then because of what Lewis said, that's why I then put Callum Hudson-Odoi, and I think that's why he's a much bigger goal threat than he is as a right-sided player anyways. And then he's a goal threat, which we sometimes don't quite have enough. That's what I'd like to see. Let me go with you, Lewis. Obviously, you agreed that Mason plays, and you kind of hinted on Giroud there. But what will you do about the left side then? Do you just go Werner? Even though sometimes hasn't? Go on.
I think I'd have to go for Timo Werner because Werner's been more favoured throughout Tuchel's reign anyway. Like one of the big constants still is that Timo Werner plays most of the games. So I don't see any reason why Werner would be dropped, especially for a match of this magnitude either, especially the amount of games that you can play throughout an entire season. There's an option to play Hudson-Odoi there. And if Tuchel was to go for the surprise, I wouldn't be against it. I do think that would work, and you'd get a more threatening Hudson-Odoi, in my opinion, because you'd get him to cut inside onto a stronger right foot. So I'm not saying I'm against it. I just don't see it happening, and I think it'll be Timo Werner on the left regardless. But Hudson-Odoi on the left is a great option too.
For sure. Zach, what about you? Obviously, we all agreed that Mason Mount has to start. You didn't seem 100% convinced about who you'd be your number 9. But then also, regardless of who would be your left inside forward, whatever you call it, in this 3-4-2-1 that we're most likely going to go with?
I think it'll be Werner. I think he's been really good actually recently. Sure, he hasn't necessarily scored a hat-trick or whatever, but he's done basically everything else. I think he's been running the line fantastically well. He's been kind of, yes, he's not necessarily the greatest passer on the ball, but he's been creating opportunities, carved out a few opportunities against Atletico that I thought he kind of did himself. And just against Lindelof and Maguire, his pace is just waiting to be used, especially if we do get him behind him at all. He'll have a great opportunity to really get his legs running because his speed is ridiculous. So I think it will most likely be Werner, especially if Alonso plays, especially then, just because that seems to be that they've got like a little duo on that side going on. And as for up front, I really don't know. Tammy? I actually couldn't tell you. I couldn't give you a name. I've got no idea who'd be up front. I think it could be maybe Giroud on form, but then also like he seems to like to give Tammy 50 minutes or so. So I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, predicting the front three, I mean, we've learned this over the last few weeks, haven't we, Lewis? Whenever we go through a predicted 11, we're sure about the goalie, we're sure about the back three. We can somewhat like make our minds up about the wing backs and the centre mids. And then we get to the front three, other than Mount and probably Werner, but the combination of the three of them, we're like, oh, well, I don't know. And that's what it ends up every time. And, you know, it's a really tough one. I don't know. I still like the false nine, even if it's not Kai. As much as I said, you know, I think Giroud could work well in this, and even Tammy, I definitely agree with Zach that Tammy gets severely underrated by a lot of people regularly, too regularly. Mason in the middle, allowing to have Callum in there, or Pulisic, mind you, Pulisic, let's not ignore him, especially if his calf is now fully fine, could always be a big player to pop up with big goals. I know he's only scored 2 this season, 1 in the Champions League, 1 in the league, but regardless. And then you have Werner on the left and having a bit more freedom and kind of switch between being a number 9 and being that left 11 or left inside forward. I think it would be nice. But like Zach touched on, does that work with Kai and Mount? And I actually think Kai does better at that. See, it gets me all crazy minds. All crazy minds where I can't decide on anything anymore. So let's just get past that. We don't 100% know, but we've given you our best shot at our predicted 11 and what we fancy. But I think we should probably get to score predictions before we slowly but surely round it out. But again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. Check out Zach's and Lewis's channel. Both of them are down in the description. Zach is even in the title. Subscribe to both of them. Smash the like button because I told you this, guys, before. YouTube likes on videos and streams. They see people like this, so we need to recommend it to more people. So if you like this, more people will get to see it. That's great. Then I get my 10k subscribers sooner and I bother you less. So subscribe, smash the like button. Everything's brilliant. But let's get to score predictions. Lewis, obviously we touched on our score predictions with Flex yesterday already. Did you change your mind since then, or have you stuck to the same?
If mine was 1-0 then, yeah, it's still stuck to the same. I don't see a lot of goals in this game. But I see one team breaking them down, and it should be Chelsea, unless United drop another bit of individual brilliance like they're well known to. But yeah, I'm going to be confident. I'm going to back my team, so I'm going to go 1-0 Chelsea.
There you go. Zach, what about you?
Screw it. 2-0.
There you go. See, I love the confidence. I said this yesterday to Lewis already. Like, it's just one of those games that feels like it's either a 0-0, a 1-1, a 1-0, or a 2-1. There's no other options. Or 2-0. That is a fair option. But there's not going to be no team scoring 3. That's just not happening. It's just not going to happen. I feel like because it's Manchester United and everyone in the referee department loves them, I think they'll probably end up with some dodgy penalty, and that's how they're scored. And that's when Manchester United fans will go, but Bruno Fernandes scored against a top 6 team. Yeah, great. Probably lives for it as well, but oh well. So that's why I'm gonna predict a 2-1 win. Regardless of how that happens, I would love like a late winner. We haven't had like obviously Giroud was quite late, but like I'd love like an 85+ minute winner, which is just for the emotion that always brings when you get a late winner against a big team. It's just what I haven't seen in too long. Maybe I'm just forgetting one, but I haven't seen it. Against a big team in particular, I just really want that. Ladies and gentlemen, guys, by the way, if you don't remember, I sometimes like to do like a couple of quick fire questions towards the end. So if any of you has a couple of quick fire questions that you want to put in the chat, do that before we round it out here, because I want to get a couple of like last minute thoughts or whatever from both of you guys. Now, let me go with you first. Like, obviously, we touched on Manchester United. I would probably sit back. How do we deal with that? So I predicted 11s, but who do you think will be our standout player, but maybe gets us the goal as well? And do you think obviously you predicted 2-0, so that means United won't score per your prediction. But how do you think we'll deal with them? Will it be like a goalkeeper masterclass? Will it be like they don't do nothing, or will it be like they're missing chances?
As for star player, I'll go Callum Hudson-Odoi or Mason Mount. Mount just seems to always be up there at the moment, and he'll be living for a game like this to try and really showcase his ability to everyone watching. And as for how we will deal with them, God, really depends on. As you said, it's so hard. Like, things change just the second the actual lineup's out. So, but I don't think they'll have many chances. I just think it could come down to Mendy maybe having to pull off a couple of good saves, like he did against Old Trafford, really, like he did at Old Trafford, where we actually defended pretty well, but they still got chances. So I wouldn't be too surprised if Mendy is called into action.
For sure. What about you, Lewis? Like, who do you think is going to be the standout player, maybe goal scorer, and then for the rest of the game, anything particular you think will happen?
Another few inductees into the AC Penitentiary. Other than that,
bring it up.
I was going to leave it to you because this ain't even my stream. But yeah, for doing that, yes, there'll be a few more inductees. There's space already. There's plenty of room for Martial, Cavani, Greenwood, you name it. There's plenty of room, plenty of spaces. So yeah, clean sheet for Chelsea. I have no clue who's scoring. I can't lie. We ain't clinical enough for me to even give a name for a player, but someone will score. And yeah, Chelsea to go finally get a win against Manchester United at home. I can't believe I'm even saying that, but here we are.
Exactly, and we can all just hope and pray. That happens, because I presume it's the same for you guys. But whenever, especially when it's big games and the result just doesn't go away, it just ruins my mood completely. And I'm just devastated for 2 days, and I just can't have it. I just want to have a good time. We're all like this lockdown and everything is crazy enough anyways. Let us have a good time. So boys, just get the dub and we'll all be lovely jubbly. That's what's going to happen. But ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to leave it here. We've been going for just over an hour, which is brilliant. Again, massive shout out to Zach, obviously, for coming on. Big up yourself. Check out his YouTube channel. Follow him on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere else. I'll give you a second to shout your stuff out in just a minute. Obviously, the same for Lewis as well. But like I said already, guys, make sure you subscribe. Help me reach the 10K subs as soon as possible. Smash the like button. How many are we on anyway? Let me check. How many are we on? 100 and...
As always, not enough, so smash the like button.
Exactly, 124. Let's get to 150 right now. Go down below, smash the like button. Doesn't cost you any money, barely cost you any time. But Zach, why don't you shout out where people can find you? And obviously, again, massively appreciate you coming on.
No worries at all. Yeah, just my name on everything, Zach Jelleb. Search it. It'll become on everything, YouTube. And then, if you want to check out the stuff that I do in Chelsea, then check out Chelsea's YouTube channel as well. Unscripted. We got an interview with Thiago Werner coming out next week, I think. I'm not too sure when, but it'll be out soon.
There you go. See, my man's just name dropping, and he can do it as it's nothing. There you go. And big man, our team came out with the quick fire questions to properly round it out. I'm gonna just start with you, Zach. Favorite ice cream flavor?
I'm happy. Anything but chocolate, really. I'm not a big fan of chocolate ice cream. Yeah,
All right.
anything but chocolate.
There you go. It's a big shout. Lewis, what about you?
Anything but vanilla. I can't lie. It's just
but vanilla, all right.
Yeah,
See,
but more cookies and cream.
Cookies and cream is good. Cookies and cream is good.
There you go. I don't really know. Like ice cream flavors are so difficult because like, do we go with like the basics, like the when you go to Italian gelateria place, or are we talking like Ben and Jerry's flavors? Like who the hell knows? Because a bit of salted caramel brownie Ben and Jerry's bangs. Like I'm telling you, it bangs. But if we're going like I don't know, just chocolate, what it was called, chip cookie thing, something good. Anyways, Messi or Ronaldo? For me, clearly Messi. Zach.
Yeah, the greatest of all time. Yeah, Lionel Messi, just ridiculous. Ronaldo's not too bad as well. He's not too bad.
Not too bad, yeah. Lewis, what about you? You going Ronaldo?
My mind changes all the time, but Messi. I'll go Messi.
There you go. I'm going to leave out the favorite type of tea because the only time I drink tea is when I'm ill, so it doesn't matter. I'm not English, so I don't do the tea thing. But tea or coffee? Let me go with you first, Lewis. Tea or coffee? Where you going?
Coffee. Always gotta go coffee.
There you go. Zach, you?
I don't really drink either. Yeah, I'm not really a big hot drink person. I'll take water over it every day of the week. If I have to
Man
say...
just does Carabao. Man's properly like on brand with Chelsea. That's what he does.
Yeah, if they want to pay me, sure, Carabao.
There you go. No, I definitely pick coffee over tea. But guys, we're going to leave it here again. Thank you to both of these guys for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to everyone that has tuned in. Like I said, subscribe if you haven't already. Smash the like button. Check out these guys' channels. Both of them are down in the description below. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea. And I'll see you next time.